Continuing along the lines of measuring the width of the web based on the contrasting feature, in this video we're going to look at how we can measure the width based on some printing or contrasting feature on the web with two sensors. So I've got a sample here with a whole bunch of features on the web, not just the edge of the web. The left side has an intermittent line of a certain width, and then the right side has a solid line. And then we have some labels with different edges with gradients and things like that. We can use any of these features to be able to measure the width of the web. We don't necessarily need the edge of the web. And as explained in the previous video, these are relevant for certain applications where you want to measure the width of a coding or the width of a printed feature that might expand or contract differently than the edge of the web. And our sensors have the ability to do that. So let's go into the controller and see how we can set this up. We want to first make sure that both sensors are enabled, and I've got both sensors enabled, and go into the operator sensor screen, and we got the sensor 1 and the sensor 2 image. As a first step, what we are going to do is we're going to teach sensor 2 to look at that intermittent line and sensor 1 to look at the solid line, and use that information to measure the width of the web. So let's go to sensor 1. Sensor 1 has the solid line, so we want to pick that line. So I'm going to go in and pick the line mode and pick the feature that I want. That's the solid feature that I want, locked in on it. Now go into sensor 2. This is the intermittent line, so if I move the web or move the material, you can see that the line disappears, comes back in. So I'm going to pick that feature right there, lock it in, and then we have locked both the features, but we don't know the distance between the two features. So if we already know what the distance between the two features are, then we can enter it. So let's say it's 8 inches is the distance between the two features. I'm going to go in and teach it. So the teaching procedure, what it does is it teaches the controller to know the distance between the two sensors. If we don't do that, then the output measurement is not, it will be proportional, but it won't be the measurement. So I'm going to go in and teach it. Now I've got that measurement taught in. As you can see on the web browser, that the measurement now has updated to 8.002 inches, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the sensor. So maybe we can have a picture and you can see it there. Yeah, I'm going to move the sensor so that you can see how that width measurement changes. Oops, there's the width measurement, and when I move the sensor, you can see that the width increased because I moved the sensor outside. And now I'm going to move the sensor inside, and you can see that the width goes down. This way you can pretty much teach the controller to pick up any feature that you want and have the ability to track the width of the two features and teach the controller for the distance between the two sensors, and then log the data. We'll also look at how we can do the same thing with a different type of feature. So we'll go into the controller operator sensor screen, and then this is the intermittent line sensor. So I'm going to make sure to try to teach it to the edge of the label. So I've got that label there, put it on auto, and I want to be able to teach that. So I want to come in from this direction and pick that edge of the die cut label there, and I'm going to move this sensor 2 and do the same thing, sensor 1, and do the same thing. So this is the black line and this is the edge of the die cut label, so we want to teach it to that. I'm going to go to that mode and pick that edge of the die cut label, teach it to that, teach it to that. We need to make sure that this turns red and all the other features goes away. That's when the controller says that the feature had been taught. If it doesn't happen, then the width will not have an output. I'll show what happens if we don't have it. Again, if we go back and teach the distance between the two sensors, so let's do that to be the same 8 inches. And if you go back into the web browser, then you can see that's the width. And if I move the sensor, and you can see that on the top right hand corner, if I move the sensor, then the width increases or decreases. So pretty much any feature that we could teach for in the contrast mode can be used to track the width of that contrasting or the combination of the contrasting feature. One more thing I want to mention is that we want to make sure that the teaching is accepted by the controller. If the teaching is not accepted, then the width will not get recorded properly. So for example, if I go into the sensor screen, go in here, and then let's say the teaching was not accepted. If the teaching was not accepted, it's going to look like, oops, it's going to look like this. Even though it picked up the contrast, the teaching is not accepted. And if we go back to the home screen, the width is going to be 0. This is mainly because that in order to measure with the contrast mode, both sensors, the contrast needs to be picked and taught. So if we go back in and teach that contrasting feature for sensor 1, sensor 2 also has that already, and if you go back to the home screen, you're going to see the width measurement. And if you go back to the web browser, you should also see that width measurement there. That's essentially how we would set up the controller for web width measurement with 2 sensors, and both sensors are in contrast mode and tracking a contrasting feature on either side of the web. It concludes our presentation about width measurement with either 1 sensor or 2 sensors, with either edge mode or contrast mode. We also looked at the different outputs that we received from the controller with respect to analog, digital, and Ethernet. And with this, you would be able to apply our products to multiple different applications. Hope this information was useful, and please subscribe to our channel and for more information about our products and how they can be used in your application.